Okay, hi everyone, I'm Adam from Open Learning, and you may know me from seeing me on Open Learning, chatting to me when you have questions, or just seeing me around the site. So I'm really thrilled to be here and to be working with Professor Mushtaq and obviously with Richard, and it's pretty cool that we're all here in Malaysia. I flew all the way from Sydney to see all of you, but obviously you can see me online. So I wanted to share an experience I've had in the past. This is going back about 3 years ago now, of something that happened to me when I first finished university. So I was probably not far from where you were sitting. So it's quite an interesting experience, and it was completely unexpected. But it had some very interesting ramifications, and it made a huge impact on my life. So that's what I want to share with you today. Kind of that story, and what I've learned from it, and how I've kind of carried that through to everything I do now. So the endeavor was called Vodafail, and there's a very simple reason for it. And what happened was, when I effectively graduated university, it was at the end of 2010, and I was just starting to look at, what I should do with my life and all those sort of big picture things. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm a cool, university graduate. I need a fancy new phone. And I heard all the cool kids use Vodafone, so I thought, oh, I'll try that. I can be a cool kid too. So I got one of these, fancy smartphones. This was 2010. So I was like, oh, I'll try this thing out. So what I did was, I got the phone, and very quickly, it just didn't work. How you go and you try and browse the internet, and it completely fails. And you try and call someone, and then the call drops. And then someone sends you a text message saying, hey, where are you? And the text message was 5 days late. So all of these sort of experiences, although somewhat common, kind of compounded. And then I had a lot of other issues with it as well. So my girlfriend was actually in a car accident, and I couldn't reach her on the phone because every time she called, the call dropped out. So I thought to myself, this is really unacceptable. People rely on phones, they rely on all this modern infrastructure, but there seemed to be no guarantee that it would work, and just an expectation that it would work as the ad said. So obviously, when you're in these situations, the first thing you do is what do? You call up customer service? Have any of you had these issues with your phone before? And what do you call up? You post on Facebook or something? Yeah, so you can try all of that stuff, and it actually it didn't work at all. So I was effectively, what I had to do was, I kept calling up. I went in the store, and they said, oh, you can't come into the store. You've got to go online. So I go online, and they say, oh, we can't help you. It must be your phone. So I spent hours and hours on the phone, on hold, talking to a customer service center in another country. It wasn't Malaysia, actually, which would have been cool if it was. But now, I waited a lot of time on hold. I thought to myself, okay, well, what can I do while I'm on hold that will actually make a difference in this situation? So I thought, oh, well, I'm a software engineer, and I made a lot of websites in the past, so maybe I'll make a website for this. So I looked up, and I'm what's the situation? This is Vodafone, so I was oh, Vodafail. So I looked on a domain registration site, and the domain name was available. So I was wow, this is too good an opportunity to pass up. No one's bought this domain name. So I had to purchase it, and I did. And then one day, it was a Sunday, I was waiting on hold, and I thought, the hold music's okay, it's not too bad. So while I'm on hold, I'll just make a website. So I made a very simple website, and effectively, the simple premise was, I thought, well, they probably won't listen to me, because I'm just one person. And when you're a big company with millions of customers, you probably think, oh, I lose a few hundred customers every day, so it's no big deal. So they don't really care about the individual too much. So what I did was I thought, okay, if I get lots of people together, and then they talk about how much they hate the service, or what pain it's causing them in their lives, then maybe the company will listen. And it came back to the simple premise that if you just share how you're feeling about a service and what it's done to you, your story, so to speak, then that makes you feel better, actually. And it also informs other people as to what's actually happening. Because one of the things I didn't know was I the only person in Australia who had these problems? Or was everyone else having it, but they were just really too scared or too complacent to do anything? So I made this simple website, and I thought, okay, I'll tell some people about it. So I posted on some web forums that were one was called Whirlpool. It's a really big technology forum in Australia. And then I posted on Facebook, and Facebook was kind of funny, actually. So on Vodafone's Facebook page, everyone would complain. So it just became like a complaints page. So I just replied to every single post with the website. And very quickly, I got blocked from posting on their Facebook page, but not before like 50 people saw the website. So that was a success. So I thought, OK, there's one way to do it. And then I also figured, well, I'm waiting on hold, so when Vodafone finally answers the phone, I'll tell them I made a website. Maybe that'll make a difference to them. So I was like, hey, I made this website about your company. And they're like, oh, we don't really care. So I was like, OK, fine. Well, this is like what the website looked like way back when. So I think one of the funny things about it is it wasn't designed very well, but it was designed with a very like tongue-in-cheek sort of humor that really resonated with people. Like the entire website was initially meant to be satire. So you go there and it's like, how do you lodge a complaint? And it's pretty much all jokes that I told. So I just make a bunch of jokes. And people like that. But I guess the key things were like, you could share your story. There were like a Twitter feed of all the complaints happening around Australia. And you could see what everyone else was posting as well. And down the line, I also ended up categorizing all of the complaints. So I figured, oh, there's actually like a few different themes. So like I had problems with my phone dropping out. And then there were other issues. There's a really funny one. So there's like an automated phone service they had called Lara. And Lara was like the personality they gave to the person who you'd call up. So you call up Vodafone and it'd be like, hey, welcome to Vodafone. My name's Lara. How can I help you? And it's like you say what you want. So it's like, I'm having phone problems. And they're like, OK, just a minute. I didn't understand that. What was your problem again? It's like, my phone doesn't work. It's like, OK, thanks. I'm transferring you to billing. Like, that was effectively the experience most people had. So there were tons of complaints just about this person named Lara. So it was actually quite funny to watch. And there were a bunch of others, and we cataloged all of them. And it turned out a lot of them were like not just in Australia. There were other places in the world. And I think that interested me quite a bit as well, because I thought, initially I made this website for Australia, but Vodafone's in lots of countries, and they have lots of customers worldwide, and other countries have problems too. So that had a big impact on the way I thought about it as well. So I made the website, and initially like a few people used it. So I thought, oh wow, I've got like 20 complaints. I'm doing well here. But that was kind of just the start. So the first big break for the site was about 6 days after I started it. So I started on a Sunday, then on like the Friday, where I'd just actually taken 2 months off from work for like my summer holiday before I started as a full-time graduate at the place I was working. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take 2 months off. I'm going to like, think about what I want to do, maybe travel a bit. But then almost immediately, Vodafail was in the press. So I got quite lucky, and the Sydney Morning Herald, which is one of the major newspapers in Australia, ran a little back page thing on the website. So all of a sudden, like 500 people posted on the site, and I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then there were a lot of spam posts, like telling people to like die and stuff. But I deleted all of those, so a bit of a moderation thing as well. But the thing was, like, I was really impressed. I was like, wow, so many people saw this. So one of the things happened quickly is I had 1,000 people posting their stories, and some of the stories were quite like not so much impressive, but they were quite telling. Like people would talk about how they lost jobs and they lost business because if you're like a plumber, then you use your mobile phone to book all of your jobs, and you wait for the customers to call you back, and so it's this whole it's this really vital piece of technology. And if that just doesn't work, then people's livelihoods are affected. And I think that was one of the really amazing things that I saw really quickly by reading these stories, was that the phone kind of used to just be like a social sort of tool. You just use it and you talk to your friends, and if you can't reach them, so be it. But so many people run their lives off of it. And so many people place so much importance on having the thing work all the time that when it doesn't, like, they're completely screwed. So those stories were really, really telling to me. And I started thinking about the trust people were placing in me as someone who just put up this website that kind of just let them share their stories. And then I thought about, what's the expectation of me with this website? Like, what am I supposed to do for these people? Because they're posting their stories on there, and I'm not Vodafone. Like, I can't actually fix their problems. Like, I hadn't even fixed my problem yet. So it was just something that was kind of weighing on my mind that I'll come back to. And then I also, through this entire time, I had some contact with Vodafone, either through their Facebook page or every time I called up to complain. And at one point, they did tell me they were aware of the site, and just please don't use their trademark, otherwise they'll complain about it. But at the end of the day, there's nothing they can really do, so I went on my merry way. Now, pretty quickly, there was another article, a week after that, and this time it was front page of a front page press in Australia. So it was on the front page of Sydney Morning Herald, and I kind of woke up at like 8:30 in the morning, and my phone's like full of messages. Actually, my phone didn't work. My laptop was like full of emails, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And it was on the front page, and then I went to Google News, and I was like, oh wow, like there's like a picture of me next to a robot that I took. Because like one of the things is when you're in the press, a lot of times they'll just email you and say, hey, can you send me a picture of yourself? And you think, okay, yeah, you want a picture? Well, here's a picture I took on my last holiday. And then that's the picture they put on the front page. So for me, it was actually a picture of me standing next to like a replica of the Mars rover from the, I forget what it's called. There's like a radio telescope in Canberra in Australia. And I was there on a holiday, which would probably, Parkes Observatory. So I went to this observatory and I took a picture of me next to the Mars rover, and I thought, man, I'm so cool, like engineer next to a Mars rover. So anyway, that's a picture that got published. So just if you're gonna do things, just make sure you have a good picture of yourself, because you'll be looking at it for a long time. This is like 3.5 years later, and I still look at the picture of me next to the Mars rover. But I'm proud of it, so it's cool. But anyway, so it was on the front page, and the reason for that was because a law firm was reading all of the stories posted on the website, and they thought, oh man, like these people have real problems. I can make some money off of this. So I guess they're pretty entrepreneurial as well, even though they're a law firm. So they thought, okay, well, we'll launch a class action investigation. So as soon as they did that, they had a press conference, and the press said, hey, why are you launching this thing? And they're like, well, we read on Vodafail that everyone has problems. So they credited my website with that. So therefore, it was even bigger news. So it was quite amazing because over a period of 3 days, it was covered in every publication in Australia and on every major news station as well, and every radio station too. Like a lot of radio stations I had never heard of, and TV stations, there's only 4 in Australia, so you know those ones. But I think one of the interesting things there is through this entire time, everyone talked about the website as like a social media triumph. And in many ways it is, because it's like a very social thing that you share and you talk about, but it didn't have all the hallmarks of a social site. Like initially there were no like Facebook sharing buttons anywhere, like you didn't log in with Facebook and you didn't invite your friends. It just so happened that the things people were doing, the stories that people were posting, were so interesting enough on their own that even without me doing anything, people wanted to share those with their friends, and they wanted to tell people about it, and they wanted to talk about it. So when I first started, I probably only told probably a couple dozen people through my Facebook posts and through my forum posts. And the forum posts were actually deleted almost immediately because they violated the forum policy that I was posting it on. So even with all of that, the stories were so interesting, and the other tools I developed were so useful as well. So I built things so you could input your mobile coverage where you were in Australia, and then I generated a crowdsourced map of Vodafone's actual coverage, which conflicted quite heavily with what they had on the website. So all of these sort of tools were really interesting to people. And because of that, they shared it. And then because it was in the press, then that just increased the effect. So Vodafone as a company was really struggling to work out how to react to all of this. Because first of all, it was over Christmas break, which is, in Australia, people take like 3 weeks off. So everyone went on holiday. And the CEO sent out an apology. And he just said, I'm sorry, but I don't think there's any problem with this sort of stuff. So one of the big mistakes that the company made was that they just kept denying that there was a problem. Even in the face of like 10,000 stories from people who clearly said there was a problem, and people who called up on the radio stations, and people who talked about it on like Twitter using like the Vodafail hashtag, which was trending like throughout Australia for such a long time. but they still kept denying it. And I think there are a number of lessons in that for the company, which we'll look at. But one of the key ones is that you really obviously have to listen to your customers. I mean, if they have a problem, and so many of them have problems, you can't just keep blaming them, because eventually, even if it seems like their problem, if they leave you, you're in trouble. So it's something to really think about. And to make matters worse, the CEO decided to go on the news and the press and actually say there was nothing wrong. So it's actually a big case study in what not to do. So when you're running your companies, you can think of this and think, what did they do? I'll do the opposite. But even with all of that happening and with tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people on Vodafail, it was still run out of my dining room table. So here's a picture we took at the time. It's like the Vodafail command center. It had 2 laptops and a screen, and some pizza I hadn't finished eating because I hadn't slept in days. So it was kind of funny actually, because stories kept coming in, and eventually what I ended up doing was recruiting a team of moderators and supporters from around Australia who were really passionate about the problem and who really wanted to help people out. So it was quite interesting because I knew that I couldn't do everything on my own. There were so many stories being posted, and although I didn't have to do anything, it's important that people saw that there was a presence or a response in some cases. So the moderators that I recruited would actually go around, and if people had problems that could be solved by Vodafone, we'd actually direct them to the right people to speak to. Because we after a few days, we knew how to get stuff done. But I think one of the other interesting things I found was that we had to get people to post stories, it had to be very natural, and it had to be anonymous. And so whenever you put an anonymous box on the internet, you'll get a lot of stuff coming through that you might not like, but it's one of the key things that kept the site so popular, that you didn't have to log in anywhere. You could just go in, you could post your story. People would write 10,000 word stories, and they wouldn't leave a name or any details. They just wanted to get it off their chest. And I think it made people feel really good about what they'd done. So they couldn't actually get their problem solved, but they could make themselves feel a little better by sharing it with people. So that's what the site provided, and because of our desire to keep it both anonymous and completely public, and not to moderate comments stories before they were posted, we had to do a lot of moderation after the fact. So we had to do everything from removing people's contact details that they either accidentally posted online, or removing names from a hit list people made of people at Vodafone they hated. So actually, by the end of it, we actually had filters for things like the CEO's name, because he came up so much, and people were sending him death threats. So you have to be mindful of some of these things. But so very quickly, there were over 7,000 stories on the site, and one of the funnier things that happened was the CEO actually called me up, and he wanted to talk to me, because he's obviously by this point he'd been on the TV shows 2 days in a row, and his PR department had gone on holiday, and it was pretty much just him, and he was so he was talking about it, and he's I just need to meet you to see what all this stuff is. And I think the funny thing about it was he didn't know if I was some crazy person or some rational person, but he's he just had to find out. And I think he got lucky in the sense that I think I'm quite rational. I could have been a crazy person, but I ended up meeting him, and I met with him and his director of customer service, and we pretty much just laid out all of the problems that we had seen through the stories that were being posted on the site, and all the data we collected that proved that there were problems. So effectively, they reassured me that they were on top of it and they were going to fix it. But obviously, the proof is in the pudding, saying they have. So until it actually works, you can't tell me it's fixed. And even now, 3 years later, they're still struggling to get over that conception that it still doesn't work. And a lot of people still think it doesn't work. So it's very difficult once you come from that mindset of telling the customer that things are fine even though they aren't. It's really hard to get away from that. But by this stage, there was just so much press and so much attention. on the site that I decided, I kind of reflected to myself, and I thought, okay, well, 10,000 or 12,000, however many people at the time, had really trusted me with their stories. They'd really put themselves out there. They talked about how they were losing business because of Vodafone, how it was hurting their relationship, all of these sort of things. And I was, keeping the pressure up on Vodafone as well, and they were starting to release more information about how you can actually get out of your contract. Because the funny thing about it was, all I really wanted was to get out of my contract, which I had just signed 4 weeks prior, which you're really supposed to be able to do legally in Australia. So I really just wanted to get out of my contract, and they wouldn't let me out. So if they just let me out of my contract, none of this would have happened. So they realized that. So after that, they had a procedure, and it's if you are having problems, call us, and we'll let you out of your contract. They're just please, don't let this happen again. Was but they still hadn't really fixed the problems, and progress was very slow. But I was thinking to myself, okay, so these people trusted me. They put their stories up there. They know that I'm not Vodafone, so I can't fix this network. I can't fix the customer service problems. What on earth can I really do here? And I think one of the interesting things that you always see about consumer activist campaigns is that they're very fleeting. They come and go in an instant. And a lot of times they make absolutely no impact. And a lot of times they're just like a YouTube video. Someone makes a YouTube video, it goes viral, it's very funny, and everyone says, oh, that's a big problem, someone should do something about it. And then, it passes next day. And most campaigns are like that. Everything from political campaigns to, when people run petitions, they get 100,000 signatures, and they send the petition to some person in charge, and nothing ever happens. So this was something I was really thinking about, because this sort of Vodafail campaign actually went on for about 2 months, and it's much longer than any sort of 15-minute of fame or YouTube video that goes viral. So I was really trying to think of how could I turn all of this anger that people have, all of these problems people have, or challenges, I should probably say in this course, so I don't use the P word. But turn all of those challenges and difficulties into something constructive that actually makes a difference. And this was something that really weighed on me. And because I didn't want this to be one of those campaigns that just came and went and nothing happened. So I really wanted to make a difference with it. So I thought, how can I turn this anger into something constructive? And that was really challenging. But I started working on it, and I had about 4 people around Australia who were helping moderate the site and bouncing ideas off of. So we had this group going, and I never met these people in person, but I trusted them completely, just based on I don't know. They seemed like nice people online, so sometimes you just have to be trusting. But there were a lot of other things that were happening to Vodafone at the time, so completely unrelated to my website. Although Vodafail became the focal point of all of these. So one was that there was a privacy breach. So all of the customer records were released on the internet or something ridiculous. So the privacy commissioner had to investigate. And then there was a problem with the resellers selling data to different people. So then that was in the news. So all of these different stories kept coming up, and they kept reinforcing the idea that there are serious fundamental problems. And it all came back to Vodafail, even though I really had nothing to do for the most part with those stories. At the same time, Vodafone started working on improving their response. So they would release information more quickly, they had blogs out, so they were trying to give more information. But the fundamental problem was just that they hadn't invested in their network for 3 years, and now everyone was using smartphones with lots of data, so the network couldn't cope. And you can't fix that overnight. So they were in a really difficult situation. But what I ended up coming up with was I kind of did some analysis with my team on all of the stories that were posted on Vodafail. So at that point, there were over 12,000 of them. And I took all of those stories, and we just ran some simple textual analysis on them to see, just to roughly categorize where they went. And we looked at the locations of different posts were coming from, different towns that seemed to have more problems than others. Like we had average signal strength in every postcode, almost in Australia as well. So we put all this data together. And then we also did a lot of background research on the company. And in particular, Vodafone had recently merged with 3, which is a Hutchinson telecom company in Australia. So the two companies merged, and there were cultural issues as well. They were trying to cut costs by merging back-end systems and merging call centers. So there were all of these sort of internal things going on in the company, which you had to understand. And then they also had financial issues as well. Like the company wasn't profitable, and they had to borrow a lot of money, so that obviously weighed on what they could do. And then they had miscalculated how much data people would use on all these phones. So we looked into a lot of these issues using as much information as we could, and information that people were also sending us through the website, because there are a lot of active supporters all around the world. And we ended up writing a report. And what we wanted to do in the report was kind of draw to a close, effectively, everything that people had done on the website. So the report looked at what had happened in the past, so like how Vodafone got into the situation they were in, what they had done in response to it, and what we thought they could do in the future to actually improve the service, improve the company, and hopefully win customers back. Because my whole goal was not to tear down the company, it was just to, I don't know, make sure the phone worked. And if the phone works, then the company will be fine. And particularly with telecom companies, there are only like 3 main ones in Australia. So if Vodafone collapsed, that means there's only 2, and it becomes a duopoly. And then you're going to have like real issues, because there'll be pricing, like the prices will go up and all that sort of stuff. So my hope was that they would just really fix the problem. And the whole frustration through the whole thing was that like them not getting it and why they weren't fixing it quick enough. I think that was everyone's frustration. So we produced this report, and it's still on the website. And reports often go into black holes when you write them. So what we did with this one was we partnered with a sort of government funded consumer action group who sent the report out to their network, and it was submitted to all the regulators in Australia, and the press got copies as well, so they all wrote about it. And then Vodafone obviously got a copy too. But their response was quite funny. They're like, "Oh, thank you very much. This report tells us nothing new." And I thought, okay, well, I wasn't expecting much from you guys anyway. But it was quite funny to watch. And I submitted to everyone, and everyone wrote about it, and kind of that was that. But the report did draw to a close all of those things. And it also talked about kind of like my motivation as well. Because whenever you put yourself out there, and whenever you start something, you'll kind of become the center of attention for good or bad reasons. So there were a lot of people who spread rumors saying I worked at Optus, or I worked at Telstra, or I had a mobile shop and I was trying to drum up business, like all of these sort of things. All of them are completely untrue, but one of the challenges you'll face is that people will say things, and if there's no one there to defend you, then people will kind of assume over time those things are correct. So it's a big challenge that you face online now, where people can post anything everywhere. So you really have to be proactive in getting your message out there, making sure that people understand your motivations for doing things, and so that they know that you're quite genuine in what you're doing. And I think that's what really resonated with the Vodafail campaign. It was clear that like I wasn't part of any organization. I was just some person who had problems that the company ignored, and I was kind of standing up on behalf of everyone. And that message got out very well. And we were very good in making sure that stayed the message. But you'll always get attacked for those sort of things. So we answered a lot of that in the report as well. So our supporters could go out, and when people said things about me or about Vodafail, the campaign, they could go out and they could say, hey, look at the report. It's all there. Like, these people are actually honest in what they're doing. So I think that's important as you put yourselves out there, as you start a business, to remember that you have to make sure that your story and your message is clear and genuine. And then you'll find that people will come along with you. So about a month after that, so between the website starting and me submitting the report was like about 7 weeks. It felt like a very long 7 weeks, and a lot happened, but it was 7 weeks. And then a month after that, Vodafone announced a lot of changes, which were actually, quite a few were in line with what I said in the report. But I guess it took them a month to read, so it was quite funny. But they said the report had no impact on them, but that's fine. A lot of times when you do things like that, you have to accept that you won't get acknowledgement from everyone, and a lot of people will complain and kind of tear you down. But as long as you're confident in what you're doing, and as long as you believe that what you're doing is right and helpful, that's all that really matters. Because there will always be people who attack you, but there's also like a silent majority who probably supports you. They're just like not very vocal about it. But in general, they welcome the progress. They'd stopped denying that there were problems in the company. They stopped denying there were network issues. And they pretty much said, yeah, we screwed up. These are all the problems we're having. It'll probably take a couple years to fix. Like all of these sort of things, which although it's not, a huge consolation to everyone, at the end of the day, there's only so much they can really do. I mean, they screwed up and, it takes time to fix things. So you have to be fair as well. And I think one of the challenges that I faced through all of that was there are always people in both directions trying to get you to do things. So there are always people who want you to be angrier and to like always tear down the company or tear down whatever you're going after, even when they don't deserve it. And then there are always people who are on the opposite end, which are like, cut them slack. It's hard delivering a mobile network. Like, and you'll always see both ends of the spectrum. So you just have to be confident about what you believe and what you're doing. Now, there are a few things that happened after that. So after that, I kind of made sure I disappeared from the media for a bit. And things still kept happening on the Vodafail saga. So there was like a YouTube video called Vodafail the Musical. So someone made like a Lady Gaga music video about Vodafone, which was quite funny. I could probably post it on the course afterwards. It's enjoyable to watch. But it was just, it was really funny. You'll watch it later. And then one of the regulators that I submitted my report to wrote a submission on how the telecommunications industry in Australia should change. And my report was one of the major submissions for that case study. And beyond that, we saw all the other telecommunications companies in Australia take notice about how they did customer service. And you see a huge number of shifts, and I'm going to go through those. But in particular, a few other things happened. So Vodafone ended up changing their CEO in 2012. So I guess the other guy got the message. And then I ended up closing the website to new complaints over a year ago because traffic had died down, and I figured, time for people to kind of move on. But I guess if it's any nice consolation, Vodafone themselves adopted a lot of the stuff that we designed into Vodafail. In particular, we had this like local profile idea. So you put in your postcode, and you can see all of the complaints, all of the stories, all of the positive things as well. So our key story sharing thing was called Share Your Pain. But to be fair, I also created a section called Share Your Gain. So when you got something out of Vodafone, you could talk about it as well. Needless to say, the Share Your Pain had a lot more complaints than the other one, but you can post whatever. So Vodafone ended up adopting that. They also adopted more of a social support site. So previously, Vodafone just looked at how they could use social media to sell their products. And I think that's how a lot of people approached social media for when it first came out, particularly for the past few years. And that was really the wrong way to do it. Because when people go to your Facebook or your Twitter, yeah, they want to find out what the company offers, and they want to hear about deals and all that sort of stuff, but usually they're not very happy. So if they're not happy with your service, and they go and they see you advertising that service incessantly, it just makes them angrier. So they ended up learning, and they actually added customer service staff to their social media campaigns. So they could actually do a bit more. And they also fixed up their coverage mapping. So a lot of telcos everywhere in the world have a map where you can see what areas they cover in terms of reception. And usually they just say, hey, we cover everything. Now they kind of realize that doesn't work, and it works against them. So they've largely stopped that. Feedback. And then I guess the other things were, how to get help. So we had all these tools on the site to help you find out the right people to contact if you had different situations, and they built a lot of those into what they were doing. So there were a few funny things that ended up happening. One was like everyone searches for Vodafail, so they ended up having to buy a lot of targeted ads on Google. So every time you type in Vodafail, they're like, oh man, you gotta go to Vodafone. So I don't know how much it cost them, but it's pretty funny to watch. So you probably see those. And then the opposite happened. I'm not sure where I should stand, so feedback's worse. So the opposite happened where a lot of Vodafone's competitors also bought ads for like the Vodafail keyword. So I think like it's kind of an interesting marketing tool in many ways. So when you're advertising your business, you can look for things that competitors that people are dissatisfied with, that everyone's talking about, and you can kind of latch onto those. Like one thing we had on the site, which was kind of funny, was a list of all of the mobile service providers in Australia and whether or not they use Vodafone's network. And if they use Vodafone's network, they had like a joke message next to them, which you can go to the site and still look at. But yeah, it really discouraged a lot of other resellers probably. But in general, they're doing a much better job now at keeping people informed. And if you talk to them now, you'll see that I think just in the past 6 months, they've made huge improvements in terms of customer service. And last I spoke to someone there, they had restructured the entire company to improve customer service, to improve their support, their social media, and they believe they've turned the corner. So, and I think they said their customer numbers, after losing 2 million customers in 3 years, they've now started gaining customers again. So it's taken them a long time, which I guess it shows, it's not easy to turn around a company of that size, but it can be done if you really focus on it, and if you're just willing to kind of let go of all the things you did previously. Like the only way they were able to turn around was that they no longer, they kind of just shed, well, obviously a lot of staff, but also a lot of the old ways of doing things, and that really made a difference. So there are just a couple recent things. So by now, over 1 million people, I think 1 million people, have visited Vodafail from all around the world, largely Australia. And even though the site is like in an archive sort of form now, people still visit the site on a daily basis. I don't know how many. You can actually go and there's like a stats link and it'll tell you exactly how many. Quite transparent. But there's some really interesting things that have come out of it, and there have been a lot of case studies around the world. As far as I know, it's been studied at Stanford and Harvard and across Australia, and it shows up in the press all the time. And in many ways, Vodafail is just such a neat way to describe any problem that people use it even when they're not having issues with Vodafone. So if there's a problem with your stove, people will say Vodafail on Twitter. So that's probably not what you want. But I think just in summary, there are a few things that I've learned along the way, and that's you can't plan everything, or in some cases anything. When I first started this website, all I wanted to do was get my phone fixed because I thought then I'd go start a company. And I did end up starting that company, but the Vodafail experience had such an impact on my life that it actually caused me to quit the graduate job that I was supposed to start in 2 months' time, because I thought to myself, me sitting there in my little room in Sydney, Australia, so far away from the rest of the world, was able to create this little thing for practically no money, and then get everyone in the country to go to the website. And then because of that, all the telecommunications companies in Australia took notice and changed customer service, increased their service standards. Vodafone changed the way they were doing things. So all of those sort of things were possible. But I'd never really known that before. I'd always thought before you started something, you had to have saved up a lot of money, or you had to have tons of experience, or be someone who's well connected. But that turned out not to be the case. So I think that was one of the major things in my life that encouraged me to quit the quite lucrative graduate job I was supposed to start and just go and try my own thing. Because and I guess it also gave me a lot of confidence that that you can do those sort of things as an individual. And a lot of people talk about how I guess everything's stacked against you. You're just students, you're just graduates. Whatever the reason, there'll be excuses. But if you think you're doing something worthwhile and if you believe in it, then you can make a difference and people will come along for the ride. Now, there's some fun customer service tips that I've learned as well. I joke that now I have to have the highest customer service standards in the world, otherwise there'll be some guy like me and then he'll come screw up my company. Now, that's probably not the case, hopefully, but there are a few simple things that I want to share with you about customer service. So one is to always put yourself in the customer's position, which seems obvious, but is easy to forget. So an example of that is when you call up a company and you have a problem, and then they say, oh, we can't do anything, it's our company policy. And it's who wrote the policy? Really? Some person wrote it, and then they put it in, now you follow it. But as a customer, that's very frustrating. So you just have to think about, well, first of all, does this policy even make sense? Why do we have a policy in the first place? The policy, maybe it should just be, help the customer. There are lots of simple things. So if you just think about it from an upset customer's point of view, I think you'll be able to solve most problems very quickly. And then the other thing that I think about is kind of this, what I call an inverse reaction to someone. And I guess this works not just in customer service, but in anything. So when someone's upset and angry about something, the worst thing you can do is be upset and angry with them, and argue with them. That's just going to make things far, far worse. And that's usually what happens in call centers because in most cases, they just don't want to escalate your problem. So they just kind of argue with you until you kind of give up. And if you don't give up, you might start a website. So I think one of the things that you make sure you have to do is if someone is upset and angry, just be happy and helpful. And then, if nothing else, that'll kind of rub off. And also you'll find that by trying to be happy and helpful, you'll probably solve their problem. And they'll come away much happier. So I guess it's just a mindset. That whenever you're dealing with someone who's kind of angry or upset, just don't be like that, and you'll be fine. And then I think something that we've really taken on to heart on Open Learning in particular is this idea of just delighting your customers. And for us at Open Learning, that's delighting our students. So everything that we do, we think about in terms of how can we make the customer, how can we make the student, how can we make the teacher's experience better, and how can we make them happy? And we talk about that in terms of providing a delightful experience to everyone who uses our product. And it's very challenging. And I don't know that anyone ever gets there where things are perfect. But if you just have that at heart, then it'll drive a lot of what you do. And you'll make much better decisions. And at the end of the day, as Mushtaq said, you start a business and you do anything because of the people involved, because of the customer, because of a problem you're trying to solve. So you just always have to have that in your mind. And providing good customer service is really just the way that people are going to interact with you and the company. So if their customer service isn't good, you won't be around very long, no matter how big your company is. So I think that's pretty much it for me. I think one of the important things is that if you do want to start something like this or start a business, make sure the problem that you're solving and the challenges that you have are really genuine and you really believe them. A lot of people, after I did this Vodafail thing, they email me and they say, oh, can you do something for the insurance industry? There are a lot of problems. Can you do something about this bank or the electricity company? And I thought, first of all, yeah, they're probably pretty bad as well, but I didn't really have a personal issue. So I shouldn't be the person leading that campaign. It has to be someone who's really impacted by it, who really feels it. And it's just like when you're starting a business. If you don't have the desire and the passion for the problem and for the product that you're building, you can't fake it. And if you're not the biggest advocate of what you're doing, no one's gonna help you, no one's gonna be involved. So you always have to go back to having a genuine story, solving a genuine problem. And for everyone, that's going to be different, and that's fine. There'll always be someone in every area who will solve the problems that matter to them. And I think I've also learned that one person can obviously make a difference. And I think it's easy to always look at that and think, yeah, you know, it's possible. These things happen. But they can happen to you as well. Like, I don't think I'm special in any way. You know, it just so happened that when my phone didn't work and someone said, I'm not letting you out of your contract, I just kind of kept pushing the boundary. And in many ways, it's just a natural extension of everything else you do. When you really want something, and when you really think something is unjust, you can just, you know, I guess, lie down and just say, I give up. But at the end of the day, like, if you don't stand up for it, no one else will. And whether that's consumer activism or starting a business, you just really have to believe in what you're doing. So that's it from me. If you have any questions, you can find me on Open Learning. I'm there all the time. Or you can send me an email. So thanks, everyone. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, I think we have some time for a few questions, if you have any.
I'm just curious, what kind of relationship do you have with Vodafone today?
I don't have any relationship with them.
Okay.
I stopped being a customer like 2 weeks into the campaign, but I kept it going. So
Okay.
yeah, no relationship now.
So they don't give you like a hamper every year?
No, if they did, I probably wouldn't eat anything in there.
I would like to ask, based on your experience in Vodafail, right, and how do I actually lead you to open learning, the gap in between? Because this is something that you personally have established, and that the other one was the previous one you experienced. So the gap in between, I always curious people how people lead to something big, and from what the experience they gather before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the question is, I guess, how did I make the jump from doing Vodafail to open learning? And there was a big gap in between. I think the reason is that when you put yourself out there and you do something, people take notice. So I made a lot of good contacts and connections once I did that, because I was in the press and people could see I was doing things. And I guess because of that, Richard actually probably came to me. I'd known Richard for a long time. He was my first professor at university. And I think after the Vodafail thing, he kind of took notice of me again probably. And then he came to me and said, you know, I've been working on these things, I want to do something. And it just seemed like a natural fit of all the things that I'd been passionate about. So I think if you put yourself out there, then opportunities will come. And you don't know what they are, like you can't plan for them, but you just have to be open to trying them out and seeing what happens. Like, I didn't know if open learning would work, but here we are like 2.5 years later or whatever, and it seems pretty awesome. So yeah, you just have to do it.
Her name is Yasmin Ginairi, and her question, she has two questions. The question number one is, what big steps have you taken to transform the whole project from an idea into a reality? And I believe she talks about open learning.
Okay.
Yeah. And the second question is, what major challenges and obstacles have you faced in the processes to achieve the goal and make it happen?
Okay, so I guess the first question, going from idea to reality, is always a challenge. Usually your ideas, if you're good, are much larger than what can really be accomplished in a reasonable amount of time. And there's this whole idea in starting a business, particularly startups, about a minimum viable product. And I think that's particularly challenging to get right. Because, you know, myself, Richard, David, our whole team, we have a lot of ideas. Ideas that will keep us busy for probably 20 years for education. And, you know, with unlimited resources, we'd still find a way to exhaust them. So I think one of the things that you look at is, what's the most important set of things that you can put together for the amount of resources that you have, and just get that out. And that concept it's a concept of a minimum viable product, but it's actually quite difficult, because particularly for open learning, when we look at like a minimum viable product, for us that has to be something that's incredible, because to us everything else is not very good. So we're building something that we say, this is going to be the best, most fantastic learning experience you'll ever have. Well, like, there's not really a minimum there. It's hard to define a minimum set of features for that, but you have to try. So one thing you end up doing is you just you put something out there, even if it's not perfect. But just knowing that it's better than anything else, that's enough to get you going. So the first version of Open Learning we put out, we worked on for, I don't know, 6 months, a year, I don't remember. And we put it out there, and we weren't terribly proud of the first version that we put out there. But it was a huge step, and we still think it was better than anything else. And over time, we've made improvements, had new ideas, implemented new things, and now it's at a stage where it's actually pretty amazing. But if we waited 2 years before getting to what we have now, we never would have got there. Because in that time, we've had people come on board, use it, give us more feedback. So going from idea to a product can take a while, but you just have to usually make some sacrifices to get something out that's much better. And for us, that was very challenging, but we pulled it off. So, and the second question, I guess, what obstacles?
Yes, and challenges that you faced.
Okay, so that's always everything every day seems like a challenge or an obstacle when you're starting a business. I mean, you have to deal with everything from finding the right people to help you out to working out how you pay them. Because as a startup, you don't have any revenue, so you have to attract investors, or you have to invest your own time and money into it. You'll have to take time off for your job, you'll have to quit your job, you'll have to dedicate yourself to making it work. So there are a whole host of, every function of the business is a challenge. And on top of that, there are also things you don't know you have to do when starting a company. And usually you only find out when someone tells you, usually the tax office or a lawyer, that you've got to do certain things. So you're always learning constantly what to do. So you never really know. So there are challenges you don't know that have come up until they've passed. But then finding the right people and keeping them motivated and retaining them is very challenging, particularly with a software company like Open Learning, where you're competing with Google and Microsoft for good people. And that's hard, because as a startup, you can't pay as much money as Google or Microsoft. But what you can offer is something where people will actually make immediate impact on people's lives. You make changes to Open Learning, and tens of thousands of people around the world will enjoy them. So we can provide these sort of things, but it's still very difficult to find the right people, keep them motivated, obviously have great customer service while also releasing features quickly to customers. So everything's a challenge, but you get through it, and it's worth it.
How do you manage the backend? Because Facebook, when they had the search, you have to manage the backend in terms of the servers, in terms of the network, and so on. So yeah. What is your wisdom behind? Because people want to start a software company, suddenly they get 400,000 users, and the system crashes and doesn't run, or got security issues, or got all these issues. How do you deal with these kind of issues in a nutshell? Unless it's top secret, okay.
It's not top secret. It's much easier now than it would have been 5 years ago, because there's so many cloud hosting services that will run all the servers for you. You still have to know how to manage all of them. So for us, it is actually a fairly decent sized task, managing all of that infrastructure, even though it is hosted by Rackspace and Amazon, in other places. But in general, you don't want to worry about scaling too much before you have those users. Because putting all your time and effort into making a hugely scalable product and then releasing it is usually why a lot of startups fail, because they do that and then they realize they don't have the right thing the customer wants. But you rarely find a startup that has failed by having scaling issues. Twitter, I think, is probably the best example. Obviously, you want it to be as reliable as possible, but if you have something that's just so much better than everything else people can use, they will put up with minor inconveniences. Twitter is a great example, because their error page is now ingrained in the internet, the fail whale. People have seen their error page probably more than the actual Twitter service in the early days, yet they were still acquiring users like no tomorrow. Now, for us, we can't do that, obviously, because people rely on our platform 24/7. So we have to have a fail whale. No, although we're thinking of it. We're going to have something like that probably pretty soon. We might have a game, actually. We'll see how we go. But, so we do manage all that. It is challenging. There are a lot of services you can use that do all of it for you, but you still need to be fairly technical to understand how it all works.
What inspired you to start Open Learning, and what's your future goal for Open Learning? you could like start any other businesses, but why open learning?
Yeah. So I guess it's interesting. The main reason why we started Open Learning is probably because Richard's passion for education and teaching, which was actually the way I was educated as well. So Richard was my first lecturer at university, and that kind of set the tone for what I thought like education could be like, which is like focus on problem solving, self-discovery, helping each other out, like doing things together in a community and having all that social interaction in a computer science course. Like normally you don't expect that. So all of that was really made a difference to me. And education in particular is one of the few sectors where you can have such a dramatic impact on people's lives. And it's just such a necessity, but yet at the same time it's done so poorly in many places. Like most people don't actually enjoy like a lot of stuff they do at school or university, yet everyone still like has to go through it. So if we can make that experience better, then it can just improve like not just individuals' lives, but like entire countries. And that really means something to us. And I guess if I could do anything, like I'd do this, like because I don't know of anything else that can have such a big impact and where we can make such a big difference. And also it's just so much fun, like building something that people love to use and also helps them learn better and have more fun doing it. It's a perfect combination for us. But like there are lots of other good ideas, so you don't have to start a competitor or anything.
So I would really like you to give Adam a very big hand for very engaging and interesting talk. Now, I do have a question for you. There is something that Adam has breached frequently today, and that is the mention of the P word. And I don't think it has ever happened in the history of all my MOOCs that the P word was repeated so many times in a period of 1 hour. So the question to you is, how many times you think he mentioned the P word?
15.
15. So anyone think it's higher or lower?
47.
47. So Arthur, you want to say something? Maybe you can help me.
100.
100 times. Right.
That's a lot of problems.
100 times. Anyone else has another guess? 28. So this is somewhere here.
Don't I have to pay for every mention of the word?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
No problem. Just say no problem.
Yes. So give him the mic. Put in here.
55.
55 times. Okay. So this is a competition. I would like you to work out how many times he mentioned the P word, and those who are closer to the answer. I mean, the first one with the right answer to be reported online, I'm going to post him or her a present. Okay?
Is it electronic post or real post?
An online post. So Open Learning, yeah, I want you to go, when the lecture is made online, quickly go and check the exact number,
Yeah.
and just put the number, and the first person to post, I'm just having a feeling it's gonna be Phoenix, but you'll never know. Yeah?
No, I already forgave him. That's why I can count.
Sure.
Thank you.
But this is gonna be there for history, you know, it was gonna be there forever.
So what do I have to pay for this?
Well, we will deduct it from your karma. So that's
Okay.
how it works. Okay, great. So before we end, I have a few more people that actually requested to speak to you. Over the weekend, I was introduced to people who are doing really cool things, and they are incubating some entrepreneurs. And they're having a reality show that's called the Board of Directors Challenge. So with us, we have the producer, Elaine, And she's going to say a few words about the course. And after that, Sui is one of the people who is competing on that challenge. And she has a request and an offer for partnership. She's looking for people to partner with her to help her raise more funds on Posable.com. So Elaine, if you would like to join us and say a few words about how is this challenge working and how people could help you be part of it. And maybe after that we give Sui the chance. Please. Thank you.
Hi guys, so how are we doing? Is this actually working or is it just for the recording? Okay, I'm shouting into it.
On the camera, yeah, so we
okay.
want you to...
All right. Hi, I'm Ellen. Can you guys hear me in the back? Yeah. Good. So I'm a producer along with another entrepreneur. I'm a social entrepreneur. We've been doing this for about 10 years. And with the grace of Ministry of Finance, we're actually running about 3 weeks online reality accelerated challenge where 13 contestants out of 80 were chosen to participate. They're housed in one bungalow at a co-working space called The Nest in Damansara Heights, where they need to be able to, one, raise funds for their startups, minimum 3,000 ringgit, maximum however much that Sui here would be pitching for. To be able to get minimum 2 board of directors pledging, as well as a lot of pledges to contribute to her site online. So she's the remaining 9 out of those who's dropped out and eliminated. By the end of next week, we'll be showcasing these 9 contestants at MAGIC, the Malaysian Global Innovation and Creativity Center, which would be officiated by the Prime Minister and inshallah the President of the United States. So let me welcome Sui and let her pitch to you. Sorry, before she starts, I'd like to introduce our production crew. One-man show, Shafiq, he'd actually be taping and recording you guys online.
Hi everyone, before I start, I'll just like to thank Professor Mushtaq for inviting me here today. To start it off, let me just catch your attention. I'm here to help you skip your exams, your final exams, right? Because I've heard this very interesting program that your professor has gave you, is that if you raise $10,000, you'll be able to be exempted from your final exam. I guess that did catch my attention, so that's why I'm here today. So I'm an entrepreneur and I'm here to share my experience and journey with you at the BOD challenge. Okay, to help you run through what you will miss out, you won't be having to sit through exams, hours of studying, sleepless nights, and everything that we would want to help you with. So, okay, I'm Yap Sui. Elaine just now explained what BOD challenge was about, so I won't have to go through that. Every participant, 12 of us total, will have to come up with a business idea, just an idea, and we will challenge them in 2.5 weeks. We have to make this business a reality. So we will come up with challenges to accumulate credit points in a way to win. So I'm quite happy to say that there's this ranking in the board of challenge, everyday ranking, and yesterday I was on top, so I'm very, very happy. But basically because I've managed to close 2 board members in my team. So if you're asking what's my idea pitch that I did to board of directors, it's actually called Hijab Royale. Hijab Royale is actually a platform for designers, fashion designers, fresh grad designers, or even any established fashion designers can upload their designs on the website. The community will be the one pledging for the designs. And if they reach a certain target, then only we will manufacture the clothing, and then the pledges will be converted to sales. So it's more of a pre-stock order, but the way if you're seeing it as a business direction, you'll be very safe from unhealthy inventory. So this was the idea pitch that I'm running with on Board of Challenges. So not only will the designers get to produce their designs, but they will also be able to start a business of their own one day and build a name for themselves. Right now, the fashion industry is very, very competitive, and especially when you're looking into the modest clothing designs. Yeah. Just a little fact, the fashion industry is booming right now, and it's not only limited to Muslim women. It's a modest clothing that is now very, very, it's coming up very well in the industry. Bloomberg had an estimation that the modest clothing, the global modest clothing is worth of 96 billion US dollars. So can you imagine if just a piece of that right down your pocket, wouldn't that be fantastic? Also, I would like to share this is because I would like to encourage entrepreneurship. Just imagine working at your time, waking up whenever you want, work whenever you want, and also being your own boss. So the good news is that I'm not sure if you all heard of Hijab to Go. They're actually a running platform right now. They're almost alike to eBay, but for hijabs. The good news is that they're currently looking into partnering with Hijab Royale, so that's good news too. Also, one of the organizers of the show actually mentioned that am I going to take this international because she has a friend in Australia that is a fashion designer. Her designs are great, but it's very, very competitive and it's hard to get out there. So she was mentioning, would I go international? And then I'm wondering, why not? Also, this is to prove this business is viable is because this is one new way of e-commerce. This time is the community that decides what is being pledged for and what is being manufactured and what is being sold. So, yeah. Just to prove to you that with just an idea of this business venture, I managed to lock down 1,500 as pledges. And my target is actually just 3,000 because on the challenge criteria, I have to get 3,000. So I did that in 3 days. You can imagine what you can do in 2 to 3 months. So I think 10,000 will be a piece of cake for you guys. Also, don't imagine like the opportunity is right now. It is possible. As long as your business is believable, you believe in that business, you believe that there is the market and there is proven that there is a market, why not? So if you're wondering why me, I would say that I was born an entrepreneur, not by choice. At the age of 13, I started painting shoes, selling them to my schoolmates and friends. And from there, I just developed. I couldn't help myself. I started taking marker pens, drawing on friends, and they paid me for it, even though it lasts 1 day. Then another one of my weird business that I did was that I made a headdress with feathers, and then I put it online, on YouTube, and then I'll get weird requests asking me where did I get them, and most of them were from the States. So I'm thinking, looks like they don't have feathers. So I bought feathers, I put it on my Facebook page. I started a Facebook campaign of 25 ringgit only, and people came coming to me for feathers from half another side of the world and paying me 3 times the price. So there are opportunities whether you know where to search for your market or not. So you're wondering why feathers, Malaysia, everywhere, all around the floor. But yeah, around somewhere out there, they need them. Okay, sorry. So yeah, like even today, if you're asking me why an entrepreneur, I can't help it. I was up all night till 3 yesterday preparing my speech for you guys because I was excited. I didn't know what to say or what to do, but I just know that I had to do well. And to sum it up, your lecturer did say that you'll be exempted from your program, right? So, okay, let's get it straight down to business. My goal is to realize and earn, My goal is to realize this business and earn millions. So I'd like to invite you guys to join my journey. And your goal is to ditch the exams. And your bigger goal in life is to be your own boss, correct? So, entrepreneur to an entrepreneur, I'd like to say, you could either join me in this journey of mine. It's like joining Tony Fernandez before he even started, who knows? I mean, it's just self-proclaimed, but yeah. Yeah, that's about it.
So Sui has joined the course as well, and she I think she has put a YouTube video of her pledge, and I told her if she managed to convince you guys to join her, I'll be supporting her in many, many ways, including pledging for her on Posable.com as well. So feel free to have the discussion to see how you could extend the dream well beyond what she has been asked to do, since she's #1. You are still #1, right? Okay, you don't know about today. Right, tomorrow the result will be out tomorrow. Great. I actually just wanted Richard to come and say a few words, if possible. I didn't prepare him. I didn't tell him that I'm going to ask him to speak, but I really felt that it would be great. This is his first time in Malaysia, and he's a person that I watched his open learning videos, and I was inspired by, you know, the way he engages huge classes. So I just thought if he could say a few words to all of us before we end. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I've been sitting here watching you, listening, not only to Mushtaq and Adam, but to all of you, thinking very happy thoughts. Although Australia and Malaysia are not next to each other, I teach many Malaysian students at my university, the University of New South Wales. And it strikes me that we're all the same. That you sitting here now are thinking about your futures and your lives, and what you want to do, and what sort of person you want to be, what sort of life you want to make for yourself, what you want to learn. And that's what my students are always thinking. And watching Mushtaq, it's clear to me in everything he does and says that you are very lucky to have him as a teacher. And he genuinely is trying to help you. And in his support for that, just even offering a pledge then I thought was quite moving. Really, you have faith in your students, Mushtaq. And I can see them, I watch your course, I can see you guys rising to this faith. So I hope you follow what Adam was saying and just really pick the dream that you want to have and believe in yourself and go for that dream. And it is possible. It has to be a realistic dream, of course, and you have to plan and think and work hard. And it's not a matter of being an entrepreneur and getting up when you want. It's a matter of being an entrepreneur and never sleeping again. But I think you can make your dream. In fact, I know you can. So all the best to you, and how lucky you are to have Mushtaq believing in you and helping you at the start of this exciting journey that you'll have for the rest of your lives. So thank you for inviting me here.
Thank you. Okay. So I think with this, I would like to thank you very much for being here on time, for participating, and see you at the next class. Thank you very much.